Hello, welcome to this video introducing note reading in traditional music notation, all the lines and the circles and stuff, for low brass players. Now, this is an important video to make, not just because I'm stuck at home with COVID right now and there are students who are missing their lessons this week, but I feel that this is one of the easiest, simplest ways to make that transition from reading letters to reading full music. The kind of music that you would find written out in Sound Innovations or Accent on Achievement or whatever book it is that you're using in your lessons. Now, for my brass students, they're going to be very familiar with this stair climbing pattern you can see here. We've been playing this for weeks. You know the notes, B flat, C, D, E flat, F. You know how they sound. You know that F is going to sound higher than B flat with tense lips. We've done this for weeks. This should be very familiar to you. And if you have a whiteboard in your lesson room at school, you will have seen me write it like this as well, where B flat is written the lowest, and then as we ascend through these notes, they're written higher and higher and higher, because they sound, or should sound, higher and higher and higher. That is why F is written the highest and B flat is written the lowest. F sounds the highest. Okay, so thing number one, you need to know that music follows the alphabet. This might seem pretty obvious. You might say, well, yeah, we've done that forever. Or even before you had lessons with me or your teacher, you may have known this. B, C, D, E, F, we are simply following the alphabet. If you continued, you could have a G at the top and then it would go back to A again, and then it would keep going up, A, B, C. All right, hopefully we are all comfortable with that idea. Number one, music follows the first 7 letters of the alphabet. Thing number two, we can take this idea and transfer it onto these 5 lines, which you will see in all of those books. They are referred to as a stave or a staff. So one set of 5 lines, some people might call that a stave, other people might call it a staff. Some countries tend to use one or the other, or they might even use both. I'm going to call it a stave for now. And at the start of each line of music, at the start of each stave, for us low brass players, you would have a kind of sad face looking or question mark looking squiggle like this. If you tip it that way, it looks like a sad face. That way around, it looks kind of like a question mark. That squiggle is called a bass clef. Bass is the musical word for a low sound. Trombones and baritones and tubas, we all sound pretty low. Bass guitar has music with a bass clef because it sounds low. Double bass, the giant string instrument that you'll see in orchestras, same deal. You get the idea. That symbol there tells you that the music is written for a low sounding instrument. Then you might get a few other things. You might get some little flat signs at the start of the line of music. You might get some numbers. For example, you might have 4/4 at the start of the line. We're not really worried about that at the moment. What we are interested in is how to work out what the circles mean when they're added to this. So what I'd like you to do, I'm just going to circle D here. We love D, 1 and 2 for baritone, 4th position, great note to play. The Sound Innovations book starts with the note D. The reason we are picking on D is that I think if you can memorize where D lives on the stave, that's pretty much all you need to know to work out any other note. As long as you know one note, we're going to pick D for the reason that you're about to see, you can work out any other note you need to. All right, so here's the idea. This is why I wanted to make the video, because otherwise, if you missed this lesson, you're going to think I'm crazy. I need you to imagine we have a bow and arrow here. We've got our bow. This is an archery idea. Maybe I'm an Olympian. I'm competing in archery. I've got my bow. I've got my arrow. I take aim and I fire at a target. Now on our stave here, let's say that I get a bullseye. Here comes my arrow. Boom. Dead center. That dead center of the stave, we're going to imagine that it's part of an archery target. There's the bullseye. There's kind of the next row. I don't know how many points it's worth in archery. I haven't done archery in a long time. There's the next row, and obviously it continues going out almost like a dartboard if you've never seen an archery target. All I need you to know is that that very center point of our target, where our arrow struck, is always D. That's it. If a note is written on the very middle line of the 5, it's always D. It does not matter if it is coloured in or not coloured in, if it has a stick coming off it, which we call a stem in music, doesn't matter. As long as the circle is on the middle line, it is always a D. That one's coloured in, it's a D. That one's not coloured in, it's a D. Okay? That is the hardest concept today. Middle line is always a D. Here is the final thing that you need to know in order to then work out any other note. The trick is, as you go forwards in the alphabet or backwards, on our stave, it always goes space, line, space, line, space, line. For example, we know this one here in the middle, right in the center of the bullseye of the target, is always D. That means that if we had a note in the space above, that's gone line to a space, line to a space, that note will be E. If it had our little flat sign, which is the lowercase b thing, if it had one of those in front of it, that tells you to play E flat instead of just E. We haven't learned E natural yet, or kind of normal E. We only know E flat, which is great, because that's how it would look. Then, if that space there is E, we're going to go up another step. This line, space to line, that line has to be the note F. So we have our pattern. Line, space, line, space, line, space, and all it does is follow the alphabet. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. You get the idea. You can keep counting as high or as low as you need to. So let's reverse it. Let's go backwards. I'm going to swap to black for this. D is always the middle line. If we wanted to find out where to put a B flat note in written music, we would need to go down. That's on the line. C would be in the space. That would be there. And that means that B flat, well, a B would exist on that line underneath C, and then you just need to add the little flat sign. That's a very ugly flat sign, but hopefully that makes sense. So, finally, what this means is that you can open to pages 4 and 5 of your Sound Innovations book, or the start of whatever method book your teacher is using with you, and they're probably going to introduce these one by one. Sound Innovations picks my favourite note. It starts with D, and it gives you a whole line of D, and then a little rest, and then D, and then a rest, and another D, and it introduces them one by one. Knowing that it's always going to follow the alphabet is going to help you understand when you see something unfamiliar. If you see a note all the way up here, for example, we've never played that note on our trombones and baritones before, but if you can remember where D lives, then all you need to do is follow the alphabet to work out what the name of it would be. And then perhaps you could work out how you could play it. Even if you didn't have the internet, you didn't have your book with you, which has answers at the back, you could work it out that way. D is on the line, E is in the space, F would be the next line, G would be the space, that on the very top line would be an A note played up high. You may know by now that down low, A is always second valve or second position, so it would be a good guess that high A is in second as well. That happens to be true. So, we've covered a lot of things, but it basically boils down to 3 points. Number 1, music follows the first few letters of the alphabet. As they move up, I've written them higher, but music follows the alphabet. Step 2, for us, reading music for low instruments, trombone and baritone, bass instruments, the middle line, as if it was a target, the middle line, the bullseye, is always D. If nothing else, please just remember that. There are 5 lines on the stave. If it was a target, dead center would always be D. And finally, if you know that D is in the middle, you can count up going line, space, line, space, line, space. you can follow the alphabet to work out any other note, because it just kind of continues higher, going forwards in the alphabet, and it continues lower, going backwards in the alphabet. So good luck. Your homework, if you're doing this in real time this week in 2022, your homework is to use the backing tracks that come with your book. There will either be a CD at the back of your book that you can put into a DVD player or a PlayStation or an Xbox, that kind of thing, and play along with the tunes. The numbers are on the pages. So your very first song is song number, or track 2 on the CD, and then you'd continue playing along, listen to your sound, play along with the recordings, and it'll be good. Some books come with links so that you can download or stream the backing tracks. You can do that obviously if your book doesn't have the CD. Your job is to try and get all the way up to page 8. Hopefully it's pretty familiar to you, especially if you've had class music at school or you've played an instrument before. You should be able to get up to page 8 or 9 and rely on this if you need to, and you're reading music. Easy as that, even if you've never done it before, like when I started and had never read music before. Okay, feel free to send me an email with any questions. I hope that's been helpful. Imagine your archery, boom, bullseye is always D. Thank you.